Y'all gotta stop. Y'all really need to stop. Angel McCoughtry done lost her goddamn mind. She done lost her mind. Respectfully, you done lost your mentals, mama. You tripped out. First of all, A'ja Wilson started this whole thing, which is complete BS and nonsense. This should never be a conversation, and it wouldn't be a conversation. We would just be talking about how great and entertaining we think Caitlin Clark is. We just be talking about how dominant A'ja Wilson is. We just be talking about how nice Paige Beckers is, but no.
USA Basketball's attempt at damage control after the promotional graphic disaster was almost more embarrassing than the original mistake. Instead of owning their obvious blunder and apologizing to fans, they tried to quietly sweep the controversy under the rug by removing social media posts and hoping everyone would just forget about their latest insult to Clark. The pattern of disrespect toward Clark has become so predictable that fans can practically set their watches by it. Every time there is an opportunity to showcase the biggest star in women's basketball, USA Basketball finds a way to mess things up and prioritize politics over common sense marketing decisions. Let's be brutally honest about what's happening here. The basketball establishment cannot stand that Clark's popularity exposes how boring and irrelevant their carefully chosen favorites have become to mainstream audiences.
And entertaining we think Caitlin Clark is. We just be talking about how dominant A'ja Wilson is. We just be talking about how nice Paige Beckers is, but no. A'ja Wilson started this, Angel McCoughtry. Don't forget that. She went on and said she could beat NBA players one-on-one. We tried to ignore it. People tried to ignore it, but y'all wanted to keep going on and on. But then when a guy actually addresses it honestly and isn't pandering like Patrick Beverley was, y'all get mad. We gotta break this down, man. I gotta show y'all the tape where it started and where it ended up.
They would rather protect fragile egos and maintain their insider networks than embrace the generational talent that could transform the entire sport. The whispered criticisms about Clark not checking the right boxes have become louder and more obvious with each passing controversy. Whether these concerns are about race, playing style, or simply jealousy over her massive popularity, the perception of unfair treatment is doing serious damage to USA Basketball's credibility with fans. Diana Taurasi being selected for Olympic teams only to ride the bench is often cited as proof that USA Basketball prioritizes name recognition over actual performance and marketability.
We have ex-WNBA player Angel McCoughtry going on a tirade about Michael Porter saying how he was destroying WNBA players when he was in the 8th grade, which isn't a surprise to us. It shouldn't be a big deal. It's not a big deal. Y'all make it one because y'all keep going on and on. And
A'ja Wilson just got the boot from the WNBA, and she was absolutely sobbing about it. The league's former Golden Girl found herself packing her bags after a controversy that spiraled completely out of control. Wilson thought she was untouchable, but the WNBA brass had enough of her antics and decided to show her the door. The woman who once dominated the court is now dominating the unemployment line. But here's where it gets wild. Wilson didn't just quietly accept her fate like most players would. She went full drama queen mode, breaking down in tears during what sources describe as an absolutely brutal meeting with league officials. The same player who talked so much trash about beating NBA stars couldn't handle getting called out by her own organization. It's honestly pathetic watching someone who built their career on being tough crumble the moment real consequences showed up. The firing came after months of Wilson making headlines for all the wrong reasons. Her mouth wrote checks her game couldn't cash, and now she's paying the ultimate price. The WNBA tried to protect her image for as long as possible.
Let's go to the beginning.
Me. Like 8 to 11. Me.
So she's saying she can beat New York Knicks forward Josh Hart in a one-on-one 8 to 11. We all know it's nonsense. We let her get it off. We left it alone. Patrick Beverley, you have a part to play in this as well. We are going to get to you. So she's saying she can beat New York Knicks forward Josh Hart in a one-on-one. We all know good and goddamn well A'ja Wilson can't beat none of these NBA players. Stop playing games.
I get ball first.
but Wilson kept digging herself deeper into a hole she couldn't climb out of. League executives finally realized that keeping her around was more trouble than it was worth. What makes this even more embarrassing is how Wilson went from being the face of women's basketball to being its biggest liability in record time. She had endorsement deals, respect from fans, and a legacy that seemed untouchable. All of that got flushed down the drain because she couldn't keep her ego in check. The woman who claimed she could beat professional male athletes couldn't even keep her own job in the women's league. Wilson's teammates reportedly saw the writing on the wall weeks before the official announcement.
Josh Hart in a one-on-one. We all know good and goddamn well A'ja Wilson can't beat none of these NBA players. Stop playing games.
It's not happening.
I get ball first.
You get ball first.
She does get ball
You're
first.
not gonna get it back. I'm not saying I'm gonna go like you gonna go scoreless, but 8 to 11, I feel like it's pretty solid. So what do you think it'll be, Josh? Don't piss me off.
And probably like 11-2.
You're sick.
I'll say probably like 11.
11-2 is what he really meant. Now he's about to be nice because he don't want to offend anybody.
7-7.
Okay.
Players were already distancing themselves from her toxic attitude and constant need for attention. The locker room became a hostile environment because Wilson refused to acknowledge that her behavior was destroying team chemistry. Her selfishness finally caught up with her in the worst possible way. The WNBA released a statement saying they were moving in a different direction, but everyone knows what that really means. Wilson became too much of a distraction, and her presence was hurting the league's reputation. The organization that once celebrated her achievements decided she was no longer worth the headache. Her firing sends a clear message that nobody is bigger than the game itself. Now here's the kicker. Wilson thought her star power would protect her from any real consequences. She believed the league needed her more than she needed them.
And starts pandering because he's pandering for views or whatever he's doing. He's over there pandering on his podcast, talking about, oh, I think A'ja Wilson can beat some NBA play. Patrick Beverley, knock it off. Knock it off. You are a respected player, heart and soul, from the crib, from the city of Chicago. And you know damn well she can't beat no NBA players. And by pandering and doing that on camera, all you're doing is dragging this conversation on. Nobody was even talking about this anymore. It was done. It was over. Patrick Beverley starts pandering, saying A'ja Wilson can beat NBA players.
That delusion just cost her everything she worked for throughout her entire career. Let's rewind to where this disaster actually began. Wilson stepped in front of cameras and made the most ridiculous claim in basketball history. She looked dead serious when she said she could beat New York Knicks forward Josh Hart in a one-on-one game. Not only did she think she could win, but Wilson was confident enough to predict the exact score would be 8 to 11 in her favor. The audacity was absolutely mind-blowing. Hart himself couldn't believe what he was hearing when someone asked him about Wilson's challenge. You could see the confusion on his face as he tried to process such an outrageous statement.
Nobody was even talking about this anymore. It was done. It was over. Patrick Beverley starts pandering, saying A'ja Wilson can beat NBA players. Michael Porter then says, man, you are tripping, Pat Bev. You know she can't beat none of us. I was destroying these type of women when I was in 8th grade. And now all of a sudden, Angel McCoughtry has lost her mind. She's lost her mind now. Let's take a look at what she had to say.
Angel, why are men so obsessed with this conversation?
First of all, congratulations. You was dominating against women in the 8th grade. What does he want? Does he want a cookie? You want a medal for that?
No,
The man was trying to be polite, but even he couldn't hide his skepticism about Wilson's delusional confidence. Hart suggested the real score would probably be 11-2, and that was him being generous. But wait, it gets even more ridiculous. Wilson wasn't content with just making the claim once. She doubled down on her statement multiple times, insisting that people didn't understand how skilled WNBA players really were. She acted like the size, speed, and strength differences between male and female athletes didn't exist. Wilson genuinely believed her basketball IQ would somehow overcome basic biology and years of athletic development. The basketball community initially tried to ignore Wilson's comments, hoping the controversy would just fade away naturally.
she started this conversation. Men did not start and create this conversation. A'ja Wilson she started it. What are you talking? Now you're talking about cycles. You're talking about all types of come on, bro.
Load manage off a headache, uplifting her. I think the main thing we should be talking about, a woman, guess what? When I gotta come and drop 40 and I'm on my fucking period and I'm bleeding and my stomach hurts and my back hurts, when y'all load manage off a headache, let's talk about how awesome that is. Let's talk about how awesome it is that women, we have these babies and we come back and still dominate sport.
Most people figured she was just trying to generate some publicity for the WNBA and didn't actually believe what she was saying. Unfortunately, Wilson kept pushing the narrative that she could compete with NBA players on an equal level. Her persistence turned what should have been a harmless joke into a full-blown debate. Here's where things took a turn for the worse. Wilson's challenge wasn't just some throwaway comment during a casual interview. She made her statement during a high-profile appearance where millions of people could hear every word. The claim spread across social media platforms faster than wildfire, with basketball fans arguing about whether Wilson was serious or just seeking attention. Either way, she had officially opened a can of worms that nobody could close. Former NBA players started weighing in on Wilson's challenge, and most of them weren't impressed. Jeff Teague kept it simple and direct when he said there was absolutely no way Wilson could beat any NBA player in a one-on-one situation. His response was brutally honest but completely accurate based on the massive talent gap between professional leagues. Teague's comments should have ended the debate right there. Not surprisingly, Wilson didn't appreciate the pushback. She expected everyone to either support her claim or stay silent about the obvious flaws in her logic. Wilson wanted all the benefits of making a bold statement without dealing with any criticism from people who actually understood basketball. Her thin skin became obvious when respected players started questioning her judgment and basketball knowledge. The challenge revealed Wilson's biggest character flaw, which was her inability to accept reality when it didn't match her inflated self-image. She created a fantasy where WNBA players could compete equally with NBA stars, then got angry when people pointed out how unrealistic that scenario actually was. Wilson's delusion about her own abilities set the stage for everything that followed. Now here's where everything went completely off the rails. Patrick Beverley decided to jump into the conversation with some of the most shameless pandering anyone has ever witnessed. The former NBA point guard went on his podcast and actually suggested that Wilson could beat some NBA players in a one-on-one game. Beverley knew damn well he was lying through his teeth, but he wanted those clicks and views more than he wanted to tell the truth. Beverley's comments were calculated manipulation designed to stir up controversy and drive engagement to his show. The man spent years getting schooled by actual NBA superstars, but suddenly he wanted people to believe that a WNBA player could compete at that level. His pandering was so obvious that even casual basketball fans could see right through his fake enthusiasm for Wilson's ridiculous challenge. But here's the really pathetic part. Nobody was even talking about Wilson's challenge anymore when Beverley decided to resurrect the entire debate. The basketball world had moved on from her delusional comments, and the controversy was completely dead. Beverley dragged the whole mess back into the spotlight because he desperately needed content for his struggling podcast. His thirst for attention was more important than maintaining any credibility. Beverley's endorsement of Wilson's claim gave her exactly what she wanted, which was validation from a former NBA player. She probably felt vindicated hearing someone with professional experience suggest that her challenge wasn't completely insane. Wilson used Beverley's comments as proof that her basketball skills were being underestimated by people who didn't understand the game. The pandering worked exactly as intended. What makes Beverley's behavior even more disgusting is how he threw his former colleagues under the bus for internet fame. The man played alongside some of the most talented athletes in the world, but he was willing to disrespect their abilities to generate some buzz. Beverley knew that NBA players were operating on a completely different level, but he pretended otherwise for the sake of his brand. The podcast appearance showed how desperate Beverley had become for relevance after his playing career ended. He was willing to say anything that would get people talking about him again, even if it meant making completely false statements about basketball talent. Beverley's credibility as an analyst took a massive hit because he chose clicks over honesty. His pandering was transparently fake to anyone with functioning brain cells. Here's the real kicker about Beverley's involvement. He could have used his platform to have an honest discussion about the differences between men's and women's basketball without disrespecting either side. Instead, he chose to feed Wilson's delusions because controversy generates more engagement than nuanced conversation. situation. Beverly's decision to pander rather than educate showed his true priorities as a content creator. The former NBA player's comments reignited a debate that should have died a natural death weeks earlier. Wilson's challenge would have been forgotten if Beverly hadn't decided to breathe new life into the controversy. His pandering created the perfect storm that would eventually lead to Wilson's downfall and firing from the WNBA. Beverly's thirst for attention had consequences he probably never anticipated. And then Michael Porter Jr. decided he had enough of the nonsense. The Denver Nuggets forward watched Beverly's pathetic pandering and couldn't stomach the fake support any longer. Porter Jr. called out Beverly directly on social media, telling him he was absolutely tripping if he really believed Wilson could beat NBA players. The man wasn't about to let some washed-up point guard disrespect the entire league for internet clout. Porter Jr. didn't stop there though. He dropped a line that would send shockwaves through the basketball world and ultimately destroy Wilson's career. The NBA star said he was destroying players like Wilson when he was just in 8th grade. The comment was raw, unfiltered, and completely accurate based on the skill gap between elite male and female athletes. Porter Jr. wasn't trying to be mean, he was just stating facts that everyone already knew. But holy crap, did that comment trigger some people. Angel McCoughtry, a former WNBA player, completely lost her mind over Porter Jr.'s honest assessment of the situation. She went on television and launched into an absolute tirade about why men were supposedly obsessed with comparing themselves to female athletes. McCoughtry was foaming at the mouth with rage over a comment that was nothing more than basic truth-telling. McCoughtry's meltdown was embarrassing to watch because she completely ignored how the entire controversy actually started. She acted like Porter Jr. just randomly decided to attack women's basketball out of nowhere. The former player conveniently forgot that Wilson was the one who made the original challenge and that Beverly was the one who reignited the debate. McCoughtry's selective memory made her entire argument fall apart. Here's where McCoughtry's logic went completely sideways. She started talking about menstrual cycles, PMS, and all sorts of biological factors that had absolutely nothing to do with basketball ability. McCoughtry was trying to move the goalposts because she couldn't defend Wilson's original claim on its own merits. The desperate attempt to change the subject showed how weak her position really was from the beginning. Porter Jr.'s comment exposed the fundamental problem with Wilson's challenge and the people who supported it. Nobody wanted to have an honest conversation about the massive talent differences between professional leagues. Instead, they preferred to live in a fantasy world where biology and athletic development didn't matter. Porter Jr. shattered that illusion with one simple statement about his 8th grade dominance. What makes this even more pathetic is how McCoughtry tried to paint Porter Jr. as some kind of villain for responding to a debate that women's basketball players started. She wanted him to just shut up and accept whatever claims WNBA players wanted to make without any pushback. McCoughtry's expectation of immunity from criticism showed how entitled some female athletes had become about their public statements. The backlash against Porter Jr. proved that Wilson and her supporters never wanted a real debate about basketball ability. They wanted to make outrageous claims and then demand that everyone either agree or stay silent. Porter Jr.'s refusal to play along with that game plan exposed the double standard that had been protecting Wilson from legitimate criticism. His honesty was exactly what the situation needed, even if it hurt some feelings. Not surprisingly, Wilson's career started falling apart shortly after Porter Jr.'s comments went viral. The WNBA couldn't ignore the toxic environment that Wilson's challenge had created within the basketball community. Her inability to handle criticism like a professional athlete became a liability that the league could no longer tolerate. Let's dive into the absolute train wreck that was Angel McCoughtry's defense strategy. The former WNBA player thought she could save Wilson's reputation by going on national television and throwing a tantrum about male athletes being honest. McCoughtry's entire argument was built on ignoring basic facts and hoping nobody would notice her selective memory about how the controversy actually started. Her meltdown became must-see television for all the wrong reasons. McCoughtry started her rant by sarcastically congratulating Porter Jr. for being able to dominate women when he was in 8th grade. She acted like his comment was some kind of unprovoked attack on female athletes instead of a direct response to Wilson's ridiculous challenge. McCoughtry's fake outrage was transparent to anyone who had been following the story from the beginning. Her attempt to rewrite history was pathetically obvious. But then McCoughtry really lost the plot when she started talking about women playing basketball while dealing with menstrual cramps and back pain. She was trying to suggest that biological factors made the comparison comparison between male and female athletes unfair or irrelevant. McCaughtry wanted people to feel sorry for female players instead of acknowledging that Wilson's challenge was completely unrealistic from the start. The desperate pivot to biological arguments showed that McCaughtry couldn't defend Wilson's claim on basketball merits alone. She had to bring in completely unrelated factors because the original challenge was indefensible on its face. McCaughtry's strategy revealed how weak Wilson's position really was when stripped of all the emotional manipulation and victim playing. Here's where McCaughtry's argument completely collapsed. She tried to use Kobe Bryant as an example of how male athletes should always lift up female players without ever engaging in honest comparisons. McCaughtry wanted to shame Porter Jr. by suggesting that legendary players would never make the kind of comments he did. The problem was that Bryant never had to deal with female players claiming they could beat NBA stars one-on-one. McCaughtry's invocation of Bryant was particularly disgusting because she was using a deceased legend to support her flawed argument. She knew that Bryant couldn't defend himself or clarify his actual position on the matter. McCaughtry's willingness to exploit a tragedy for debate points showed how desperate she had become to protect Wilson's crumbling reputation. The final nail in McCaughtry's credibility coffin came when she challenged Porter Jr. to practice with WNBA players so he could see how hard they worked. She was implying that his comments came from ignorance about women's basketball rather than an accurate assessment of talent levels. McCaughtry's suggestion that Porter Jr. would gain newfound respect after practicing with female players was completely delusional. The challenge to practice together revealed McCaughtry's fundamental misunderstanding of the entire controversy. Nobody was questioning how hard WNBA players worked or whether they deserved respect for their dedication. The issue was Wilson's specific claim about beating NBA players in one-on-one games. McCaughtry's attempt to change the subject showed she knew Wilson's challenge was indefensible. What makes McCaughtry's meltdown even more embarrassing is how it sealed Wilson's fate with the WNBA. The league watched one of their former players make a complete fool of herself on national television while defending the indefensible. McCaughtry's rant became additional evidence that Wilson's controversy was poisoning the entire women's basketball community. Her failed defense actually made things worse for everyone involved. Wilson's firing became inevitable after McCaughtry's television appearance because the WNBA realized the controversy would never end as long as Wilson remained in the league. The organization decided that cutting ties with their former star was the only way to restore some credibility to women's basketball. Wilson's tears during the termination meeting were the perfect ending to a controversy she created and McCaughtry made worse. If you are enjoying this content and would like to see more drama from the basketball world, smash that subscribe button and let me know what controversy you want me to break down next.